The coffee scalded Yannick Remington's tongue the moment he took a sip, but he barely noticed because the barista behind the counter was openly laughing at him. "You actually think that'll pass as looking like one of us?" she said, her brown eyes sparkling with amusement as she gestured toward his outfit. "Nobody who works retail wears a shirt that perfectly pressed, and those shoes cost more than I make in 2 months." Yannick glanced down at his attempt at casual clothing, purchased hastily that morning from a department store he'd never set foot in before. He'd thought he'd nailed the look for his first day undercover at Remington Home Furnishings' flagship retail location. Apparently not. That obvious? He asked, feeling heat creep up his neck that had nothing to do with the coffee. "Painfully," she said, wiping down the espresso machine with practiced efficiency. The cafe occupied a small corner of the massive furniture showroom, and she seemed to be running it single-handedly despite the Monday morning rush. "Let me guess, corporate sent you down to spy on us, see if we're working hard enough." Yannick forced a laugh. "Nothing that dramatic. Just transferred from another location. First-day jitters, I guess." She raised an eyebrow, clearly unconvinced, but mercifully let it drop. "Well, welcome to hell then. I'm Brielle Santos. I run the cafe and I've been here 3 years, which makes me basically ancient by this place's standards. The turnover here is insane." "Yannick Raid," he said, using the alias he'd prepared. His real surname was plastered all over the building, after all. His grandfather had founded this company 50 years ago, his father had expanded it nationwide, and now at 32, Yannick had been running it for the past 4 years. Running it, apparently, into the ground if the quarterly reports were anything to go by. Raid. Got it. Brielle grabbed a rag and started wiping down the counter between them. "Word of advice. Keep your head down, don't expect your breaks on time, and whatever you do, don't bother suggesting improvements to management. They don't want to hear it. Sounds like you've tried." "Oh, honey, I've tried everything," she laughed, but there was an edge to it. "I've sent emails, filled out their stupid suggestion forms, even cornered the district manager once. You know what changed? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. They're too busy counting money to care that this place is falling apart." Yannick felt his jaw tighten. "What do you mean, falling apart? You'll see soon enough." She glanced past him at the growing line. "I've got to get back to work. Good luck out there." He carried his coffee onto the sales floor, where a manager named Derek was supposed to be waiting to show him the ropes. The showroom sprawled across 2 floors, displaying everything from budget futons to luxury bedroom sets. It should have been impressive. Instead, Yannick immediately noticed the scuffed floors, the dusty displays, and the general air of neglect that hung over everything like a fog. "You Raid?" A stocky man in his 40s approached, barely glancing up from his phone. "I'm Derek Chen, floor manager. You've got retail experience." "Some," Yannick lied smoothly. He'd spent the past 2 weeks studying retail operations, watching training videos, even practicing with a consultant who specialized in undercover boss operations. "Great. You'll be in bedroom furniture. Basically, you wait for customers, show them the products, try to upsell them on the protection plans and delivery services. Commission is 10% on everything except the warranties. Those are 15. Got it. What about product knowledge, training on the different lines?" Derek finally looked up from his phone, his expression suggesting Yannick had just asked him to explain quantum physics. "Figure it out. The tags have all the info. I've got a conference call in 5 minutes." He walked away, leaving Yannick standing alone in the middle of the bedroom section. So much for comprehensive onboarding. He spent the next hour wandering through his assigned section, examining furniture that bore his family name but that he'd never actually seen up close. The quality seemed decent, but the presentation was terrible. Price tags were missing or faded, several display beds weren't properly made, and when he sat on one mattress, the frame creaked ominously. "Excuse me, do you work here?" Yannick turned to find an elderly woman looking at him hopefully. "Yes, madam. How can I help you?" "I'm looking for a bed frame for my guest room. Something sturdy but not too expensive. My grandchildren visit often, you see." For the next 20 minutes, Yannick did his best to help her, cobbling together information from tags and his general business knowledge. He actually enjoyed it, the straightforward problem-solving of matching customer needs with products. But when he tried to ring up her purchase, the computer system froze twice, and he had to call Derek over to override something. "System's been glitchy for months," Derek muttered, jabbing at the keyboard with 2 fingers. "Corporate keeps saying they'll fix it." The woman left happy with her purchase, but Yannick made a mental note. How many sales were they losing because of technical issues? Lunchtime arrived without warning. Derek simply announced that Yannick's break was now, not asking if it was convenient or if he had customers. Yannick headed back to the cafe, his stomach growling. Brielle was there, though she looked frazzled. A line stretched 6 deep, and she was the only person working. "Where's your help?" Yannick asked when he finally reached the counter. "Where's my help?" she repeated, her laugh sharp. "That's adorable. I am the help. They cut my assistant's hours last month. Now I work alone unless it's a weekend. That's impossible. You can't run a cafe by yourself. Watch me." She was already making the next drink, her hands moving in a blur. "What do you want?" "Turkey sandwich and a water." He paused. "Actually, let me help you." She froze, looking at him like he'd grown a second head. "What?" "I've got 30 minutes. Show me how to work the register and I'll take orders while you make drinks." "You don't work for the cafe." "I work for the company. Let me help." Something shifted in her expression, a cautious hope. "Okay, yeah, that would actually be amazing." She gave him a 60-second crash course on the register, and then they fell into a rhythm. It wasn't smooth. Yannick had to ask for help several times, but they cleared the line in 15 minutes. When the last customer left, Brielle actually slumped against the counter. "You're a lifesaver," she said. "Seriously, thank you. That happens every day, every single day." She straightened, pulling out the turkey sandwich she'd made for him at some point. "Here, on the house." "You don't have to do that. You just saved me from a breakdown. It's the least I can do." They ate together, perched on stools behind the counter. Yannick found himself watching her, fascinated by the way she attacked her food with the same efficient focus she brought to everything else. She was beautiful in an understated way, all wild dark curls and expressive eyes, but it was her energy that drew him in. She practically vibrated with opinions. "So what made you apply here?" she asked between bites. "Needed a job," he said vaguely. "What about you?" "Community college. I'm getting my business degree, and I needed something with flexible hours. Joke's on me, because there's nothing flexible about this place." She took a long drink of water. "I actually love retail and hospitality. I love helping people, creating experiences, building something. This place just makes it so hard." "How so?" And she told him. Over the remaining 10 minutes of their lunch, Brielle outlined everything wrong with Remington Home Furnishings from an employee perspective. The scheduling system that changed shifts with less than 24 hours notice. The broken equipment that never got repaired. The inventory management that left them constantly out of popular items while overstock piled up in the back. The commission structure that pitted employees against each other. The customer service policies that tied their hands when trying to solve problems. And the worst part, she said, her eyes flashing with genuine anger. "I know the guy who runs this company. Yannick Remington. I've seen his interviews, Read his corporate memos that get posted in the break room. He talks about excellence and customer service and valuing employees, but it's all empty words. He has no idea what actually happens in his stores. Yannick felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. Maybe he doesn't know. Then he should know. That's his job, isn't it? To know. She stood, collecting their trash. Sorry, I get worked up about this. Most people here have just given up, but I can't. I see so much potential in this place, and it kills me that nobody with power seems to care. The afternoon passed in a blur of customers and continued observations. Yannick watched his employees, really watched them, and saw the exhaustion, the frustration, the quiet resignation. He saw customers leave without buying because no one was available to help them. He saw the broken door on a wardrobe that had clearly been damaged for weeks. He saw everything Brielle had described and more. By closing time, he was furious, not at his employees, at himself. Survive your first day. Brielle appeared at his elbow as he was straightening a display. Barely, he admitted. This is harder than I expected. Retail's not for everyone. She had her bag over her shoulder, keys in hand. But you did good today. Helping me at lunch, that was really kind. Most people here don't go out of their way like that. You were drowning. Anyone would have helped. You'd be surprised. She smiled at him, and Yannick felt something warm unfurl in his chest. Same time tomorrow, I'll be here. He watched her leave, then headed to his car in the employee lot at the back. His Mercedes looked obscenely out of place among the older, practical vehicles, and he made a mental note to bring something else tomorrow. Once inside, he sat for a long moment before pulling out his phone and calling his chief operating officer. Marcus, I need you to pull detailed reports on every store location. Employee retention rates, customer satisfaction scores, equipment maintenance logs, everything. Everything. That's going to take time. I have a feeling I know what you're going to find, and it won't be good. I've been an idiot, Marcus. I've been so focused on profit margins that I lost sight of what actually makes those profits possible. The undercover thing is already paying off then. You have no idea. Yannick closed his eyes, seeing Brielle's face, the passion in her voice when she talked about wasted potential. I'll be in tomorrow after my shift, clear my evening. Over the next 2 weeks, Yannick fell into a routine. Days at the store, evenings at the office, late nights reviewing data that confirmed everything Brielle had told him. His company was sick, rotting from the inside out, and he'd been too insulated to notice. But he was noticing now. He was also noticing Brielle. How could he not? She was there every morning with coffee and a wry comment about his improving wardrobe. She was there at lunch with stories that made him laugh despite his growing horror at his company's operations. She was brilliant and funny and so full of life that being near her felt like standing in sunlight. You're staring again, she said one afternoon, catching him watching her rearrange the pastry case. Sorry, just impressed by your efficiency. Smooth recovery. She grinned at him. Hey, a bunch of us are going out Friday night after work. Just to blow off steam, you should come. I'd like that. Friday's gathering was at a dive bar 3 blocks from the store. Yannick arrived to find a dozen employees from various departments, all seeming genuinely happy for the first time since he'd met them. Brielle was at the center of it all, buying rounds despite clearly being on a tight budget, making everyone laugh. So Raid, said Jamie from home office, already on his 3rd beer. What do you really think of Remington's? Be honest. Yannick chose his words carefully. I think there's a lot of potential being wasted. Diplomatic, Brielle said, sliding into the booth next to him. She smelled like vanilla and coffee. He means it's a disaster, but he's too new to trash talk the company yet. Everyone laughed, and the conversation devolved into war stories about incompetent management and absurd corporate policies. Yannick listened, making mental notes, but mostly he was aware of Brielle's warmth beside him, the way she threw her head back when she laughed, the casual way she touched his arm when making a point. "Walk me to my car," she asked when the evening wound down. They stepped out into the cool night air, and Yannick felt his heart rate pick up. They'd grown close over the past 2 weeks, but always in the context of work. This felt different, more personal. "I'm glad you came tonight," Brielle said, digging for her keys in her enormous purse. "You're not like most of the people who work here. You actually seem to care." "I do care." More than she knew, she looked up at him, and the streetlight cast shadows across her face. "Can I ask you something? And will you be honest, of course? Are you really just a transferred employee? Because sometimes I get the feeling you're something else. The way you ask questions, the way you watch everything." She bit her lip. "I sound paranoid." Yannick's throat went dry. He should tell her. He wanted to tell her. But something held him back, the fear that knowing who he really was would change everything between them. "I promise I'm not here to spy on you or get anyone in trouble," he said, which was technically true. "I just want to understand how things really work." She studied him for another moment, then nodded. "Okay, I believe you." She unlocked her car, an aging Honda with a dent in the passenger door. "See you Monday," Yannick read. He watched her drive away, then pulled out his phone and called Marcus again. "I need you to do something Monday morning. Pull the HR files for everyone at the flagship store. I want to know their salaries, their schedules, any complaints they've filed. Planning something?" "I'm planning everything." The weekend passed in a flurry of activity. Yannick called emergency meetings with his executive team, laying out everything he'd discovered. Some of them were defensive. Others were shocked. All of them were mobilized by the time he was done. "This isn't just about the flagship store," he said Sunday evening, looking around the conference room at his exhausted leadership team. "This is systemic. We've been so focused on expansion and profit that we forgot the basics. If we don't fix this, we won't have a company left to expand." "What do you need from us?" asked Sarah, his VP of operations. "Everything. I need you to audit every location. I need IT to fix the computer systems. I need HR to overhaul the scheduling policies. I need Marcus to restructure the commission plan so it encourages collaboration instead of competition. And I need all of this done yesterday." "That's going to cost millions," someone pointed out. "It'll cost us everything if we don't do it." Yannick stood, planting his hands on the table. "I'm not watching this company die because we were too cheap or too proud to invest in our people. Make it happen." Monday morning, he arrived at the store to find Brielle already at the cafe, but she wasn't alone. Derek was there, and he looked angry. "This is completely unacceptable," Derek was saying. "You can't just close the cafe because you're sick." "I'm not sick," Brielle said, her voice tight. "The espresso machine is broken. Again. I've been reporting it for 3 weeks. I can't make coffee without an espresso machine." "Then serve drip coffee. People come here for lattes and cappuccinos. If I serve them drip coffee, they'll be furious." "That's not my problem." Yannick stepped forward before he could stop himself. "Actually, it is your problem. She's been asking for repairs for weeks." "Why hasn't it been fixed?" Derek spun around, his face reddening. "Who the hell do you think you are?" "I think I'm someone who cares about this store running properly." "You've been here 2 weeks. Don't tell me how to do my job." "Somebody needs to," Yannick shot back, his temper finally snapping. "This entire store is falling apart because managers like you are too busy with conference calls to actually manage." The words hung in the air like a bomb. Derek's mouth opened and closed, his face turning purple. Other employees had stopped to watch, drawn by the raised voices. "You're done," Derek finally sputtered. I'm calling corporate. You're fired. Go ahead, Yannick said. Call them. Derek pulled out his phone, jabbing at the screen. Yannick met Brielle's eyes across the space between them. She looked confused and worried, and something else he couldn't quite name. Yes, I need to speak to someone in HR, Derek was saying. I have an employee who needs to be terminated immediately. Name's Yannick Reed. There was a pause, then a longer pause. Derek's expression shifted from angry to confused to pale. What do you mean? Derek said into the phone. What do you mean there's a flag on that name? Another pause. He's what? Yannick watched understanding dawn on Brielle's face. Her eyes went wide, her hand coming up to cover her mouth. You're him, she whispered. You're actually him. Derek had lowered his phone, looking like he might pass out. Mr. Remington, I didn't know. Nobody told me you were. I never would have, that is to say. Brielle, Yannick said, ignoring Derek entirely. Can we talk, please? She was already backing away, shaking her head. I told you everything. I complained about you to your face. Oh my God, I called you an idiot who didn't care about his employees. You were right. I was horrible. You were honest. Brielle, please. He reached for her hand, and she let him take it, though she looked like she might bolt at any second. Derek, call maintenance. Tell them the cafe's espresso machine needs to be replaced today. If they can't do it today, tell them to go buy a new one. I don't care what it costs. Yes, sir. Right away, sir. Yannick gently tugged Brielle toward the storage room behind the cafe, away from the growing crowd of onlookers. Once they were alone, he closed the door and turned to face her. I'm sorry, he said. I should have told you who I was from the start. Why didn't you? Her voice was small, hurt. Because the moment I told you, everything would change. People don't talk honestly around the CEO. They tell me what they think I want to hear. But you, he stepped closer, you told me the truth. You showed me everything that's wrong with my company, and you did it because you care, not because you were trying to impress me or save your job. I insulted you, repeatedly. You challenged me. There's a difference. He reached up, tucking a curl behind her ear without thinking. Brielle, these past 2 weeks have been eye-opening in more ways than one. Yes, I learned about my company's problems, but I also met someone who's passionate and brave and so incredibly smart. Someone who made coming to work exciting. Someone who made me want to be better. She stared at him, tears shimmering in her eyes. You're a billionaire. Technically, yes. I make $11 an hour. I'm fixing that. I'm fixing all of it. He took both her hands now, holding them carefully. I know this is complicated. I know I lied to you, even if it was by omission. But I need you to know that everything between us, every conversation, every moment, that was real. You're real. The way I feel about you is real. How do you feel about me? She whispered. Yannick took a breath, stepping into the free fall. Like I've been asleep for years and you woke me up. Like I want to hear every opinion you have about everything. Like I want to take you to dinner somewhere nice and hear about your business classes and your dreams. Like I'm falling for you so hard it terrifies me. A tear spilled down her cheek. This is insane. Probably. We barely know each other. Then let me fix that. Let me take you out properly. Let me show you that I'm not just some out-of-touch CEO. I'm just a man who's been lucky enough to meet someone extraordinary. She laughed, watery and breathless. You're very good with words. Is it working? Maybe. She squeezed his hands. I'm still angry you lied. That's fair. And I'm terrified this is some weird power dynamic thing. It's not. I promise you it's not. If you don't want this, if you tell me to back off, I will. No consequences for your job. In fact, I'm hoping you'll consider a promotion regardless of what happens between us. A promotion. I need someone to help me fix this company. Someone who understands it from the ground up, who cares about the employees and the customers. Someone who's not afraid to tell me when I'm being an idiot, he smiled. Know anyone who fits that description? Brielle shook her head, but she was smiling too. You're unbelievable. Is that a yes to dinner? That's a maybe. Ask me again when you're not standing in a storage room and I'm not having a complete emotional crisis. Fair enough. He released her hands reluctantly. I need to go do damage control. Are you going to be okay? I need to process the fact that the guy I've been complaining to about the CEO is actually the CEO. So no, probably not. But her smile took the sting out of the words. Go, be the boss. Try not to fire anyone. No promises. He left the storage room to find the entire store in chaos. Employees clustered in groups, whispering. Customers looked confused. Derek had disappeared entirely. Yannick straightened his shoulders, channeling every bit of authority he'd spent 2 weeks suppressing. Can I have everyone's attention, please? His voice cut through the murmur. For those who don't know, my name is Yannick Remington. I own this company, and for the past 2 weeks, I've been working here undercover to understand what's really happening in our stores. What I've found is unacceptable, and I take full responsibility for it. You could have heard a pin drop. Starting today, things are going to change. Some of those changes will happen immediately. Some will take time. But I'm making you a promise right now that I intend to fix every problem I've seen. The broken equipment, the scheduling issues, the lack of support, all of it. And I'm going to need your help to do it. He spent the next hour talking to employees individually and in groups, listening to their concerns, taking notes, making promises he intended to keep. The customers got a similar treatment, along with sincere apologies and generous discounts. By the time lunch rolled around, Yannick was exhausted but energized. Brielle emerged from the cafe with a coffee and a sandwich. Thought you might need this. You're a mind reader. He accepted both gratefully. How are you doing? Still processing. But I watched you out here and I have to admit, you're good at this. People trust you. I have good teachers. He held her gaze. That offer of dinner is standing, by the way, whenever you're ready. She bit her lip, clearly torn. This is happening really fast. We can go slow. Whatever pace you need. Okay, yes, dinner, but somewhere normal, not some fancy place where I'll feel out of place. Deal. The relief that flooded through him was disproportionate to the situation, but he didn't care. How about tomorrow night? Tomorrow's good. The rest of the day passed in a blur of phone calls and meetings. Yannick pulled Marcus down to the store, along with several other executives, and they spent hours documenting issues and planning solutions. By closing time, Yannick had the framework for a complete operational overhaul. He also had a date. The next evening, he picked Brielle up from her apartment, a modest place in an older building. She answered the door in a simple dress that somehow made her look more beautiful than anything designer could achieve. You look incredible, he said. You clean up nice yourself. She grabbed her purse. So where are we going? You said somewhere normal. I found a place I think you'll like. He took her to a small Italian restaurant in the Arts District, family-owned and unpretentious. The food was incredible, the atmosphere warm, and best of all, it gave them a chance to really talk without the weight of work hanging over them. Tell me about your business degree, Yannick said over pasta. What made you choose that? I grew up watching my parents struggle, Brielle said, twirling her fork. They're both immigrants, worked minimum wage jobs their whole lives. They're the hardest working people I know, but they never got ahead because they didn't understand how business works. The systems, the finance, the strategy, I wanted to learn all of that so I could help people like them. That's incredible. It's also why I get so frustrated at your company. Sorry, your company, she winced. That's still weird to say. Don't apologize. I want you to keep being honest with me, even if it hurts, especially then. She studied him across the candlelit table. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? I don't know. Someone more arrogant, I guess, more disconnected from reality. But you actually listened when I talked. You helped me when I was drowning at the cafe. You cared about the other employees. She paused. Why go undercover? Why not just do an official visit? Because official visits are performances. Everyone's on their best behavior, problems get hidden, and I only see what people want me to see. He set down his fork, holding her gaze. I needed the truth, even if it was uncomfortable, especially if it was uncomfortable. Well, you definitely got that. They talked for hours, through dinner and dessert and coffee. Yannick learned about Brielle's childhood, her close relationship with her younger sister, her dreams of someday opening her own business. She learned about his grandfather's vision for the company, the pressure of living up to his family's legacy, his secret love of terrible action movies. You're kidding, she said, laughing. You're a billionaire who watches movies with The Rock. They're fun. Don't judge me. I'm absolutely judging you. Walking her back to her door, Yannick felt 18 again, nervous and hopeful. Can I see you again? I'd like that. She turned to face him, close enough that he could see the flecks of gold in her brown eyes. But I need you to be honest with me. Is this real? Or is this some weird crisis thing where you're drawn to me because I'm different from your usual world? It's real, he said without hesitation. I can't fully explain it, Brielle. I just know that being with you feels right in a way nothing else in my life does. You make me want to be better, do better. And it has nothing to do with your job or my company and everything to do with who you are. She searched his face for a long moment, then rose on her toes and kissed his cheek. Okay, I believe you, but we're taking this slow, understood? Whatever you need. Slow turned out to be relative. Over the next month, Yannick and Brielle saw each other constantly. He took her to museums and concerts. She dragged him to her favorite hole-in-the-wall restaurants. They texted constantly, sharing jokes and observations about their days. And gradually, the boundaries between them dissolved. Meanwhile, Yannick threw himself into fixing his company with the same intensity. He fired Derek and several other incompetent managers. He promoted from within, elevating employees who actually cared about the work. He invested millions in new computer systems, updated equipment, and store renovations. He restructured the commission plan and implemented a new scheduling system that gave employees more stability. And he asked Brielle to head up a new position, Director of Employee Experience. You want me to what? She asked when he presented her with the offer over dinner at her apartment where she'd cooked for him for the first time. I want you to be my boots on the ground. Visit stores, talk to employees, identify problems before they become crises. You'll have a team, a real budget, and direct access to me. He handed her the formal offer letter, and a salary that reflects the value you bring. She looked at the number and her eyes went wide. Yannick, this is 6 figures. It's what you're worth, probably more, honestly. I haven't even finished my degree, so finish it. We'll work around your class schedule, and once you graduate, we'll talk about even bigger things. He caught her hand across the table. I believe in you, Brielle. You're exactly who this company needs. Tears filled her eyes. You're making it very hard not to fall for you. Good, that's the plan. She laughed, then stood and moved around the table to him. You're ridiculous and wonderful, and I think I'm already past the point of no return. Yannick pulled her down onto his lap, his heart hammering. Yeah? Yeah. She cupped his face in her hands. I'm scared. This is all happening so fast, and there's this voice in my head saying it's too good to be true. But then I'm with you, and that voice shuts up because being with you feels like the most natural thing in the world. He kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise. She melted into him, her fingers tangling in his hair, and for a long moment the rest of the world ceased to exist. Stay, she whispered when they finally broke apart. "Not for anything except sleep. Just stay." He stayed, holding her through the night, feeling like he'd finally found something he hadn't known he was missing. The next morning, Brielle officially accepted the position. The news spread through the company like wildfire, met with mixed reactions. Some employees were thrilled, having worked with her and respected her voice. Others were skeptical, wondering if she'd earned it or if it was nepotism because of her relationship with Yannick. Brielle faced the skepticism head-on. On her first official day, she sent a company-wide email introducing herself and laying out her vision. Then she hit the road, visiting every store location, spending days embedded with employees at every level. She was tireless, passionate, and brilliant, and within weeks, even the skeptics were won over. Yannick watched her thrive, falling more in love with her every day. They were careful about their relationship at work, maintaining professionalism, but everyone knew. It was impossible to hide the way he looked at her, the way she softened around him. 3 months into her new role, Brielle came home to his penthouse apartment, where she'd been spending most of her nights, with news. "I found something," she said, dropping her bag and pulling out her laptop. "I've been analyzing the data from all the stores, looking for patterns, and I found one that's really disturbing." Yannick set aside the dinner he'd been preparing and came to look over her shoulder. "What am I looking at?" "Turnover rates correlated with district managers. See this. Districts under managers who were promoted from within have retention rates 30% higher than districts under managers hired from outside. And customer satisfaction scores follow the same pattern." "You're saying we're promoting the wrong people." "I'm saying we're not promoting the right people. We keep hiring these hotshot managers from other companies, people with impressive resumes who talk a good game. But they don't know our culture, they don't care about our mission, and the employees sense that." She pulled up another chart. "I think we need to completely restructure our management pipeline. Focus on developing internal talent, people who have proven they care." Yannick studied the data, his mind racing. "This is going to piss off a lot of people. Some of these external hires are well connected." "I know. But it's the right call." He turned to her, cupping her face in his hands. "You're incredible, you know that. I'm just doing my job. You're revolutionizing this company." He kissed her softly. "And you're making me a better leader in the process." She smiled against his lips. "We make a good team. The best." They implemented Brielle's recommendations over the next quarter, and the results were dramatic. Employee satisfaction scores climbed. Turnover dropped. Customer complaints decreased while sales increased. The trade publications started running stories about Remington Home Furnishings' turnaround, crediting Yannick's leadership. But Yannick knew the truth. This was Brielle's victory as much as his. 6 months into their relationship, Yannick took her back to the flagship store where they'd met. It had been transformed completely. The space was updated and clean, displays were immaculate, and the energy was entirely different. "Remember the first day we met?" he asked as they walked through the bedroom section. "How could I forget? I laughed at your terrible outfit." "You saw right through me from the start." "I saw someone trying too hard," she corrected. "I didn't figure out why until later." He led her to the cafe, which now bustled with 3 employees working smoothly together. The espresso machine gleamed, top of the line and properly maintained. "This is where I first realized I was in trouble," Yannick said. "What do you mean?" "You were running this place single-handedly, exhausted and frustrated, and all I could think about was how incredible you were. How much passion you brought to a job that was breaking your back." He turned to face her fully. "You changed my life that day, Brielle. You showed me what I'd been missing, what really matters. And every day since, you've made me want to be worthy of you." Her eyes shimmered. "Yannick, what are you doing?" He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. Something crazy. Something that probably makes no logical sense given that we've only been together 6 months, but I'm done ignoring what my heart knows. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Brielle Santos, you walked into my life disguised as a frustrated barista and turned everything upside down in the best possible way. You challenged me, inspired me, and somehow saw past the CEO to the man underneath. You made me believe I could be better, and then you helped me prove it." He opened the box, revealing a simple but beautiful diamond ring. "I love you. I'm completely, irrevocably in love with you, and I know it's fast, and I know people will think we're crazy, but I don't care. Marry me, build this life with me, keep making me better every single day." Tears streamed down her face. "You're right, this is crazy," his heart dropped. But I love you too, so much it scares me sometimes." She laughed through her tears. Yes, I'll marry you, you ridiculous, wonderful man." He slipped the ring on her finger with shaking hands, then pulled her into a kiss that felt like coming home. Around them, employees and customers who'd been watching burst into applause. "You planned this," Brielle accused, laughing. "I wanted to propose where it all started. Where you first told me everything that was wrong with me and my company. Best decision I ever made." They were married 6 months later in a ceremony that reflected both their worlds. Brielle's family and friends from her old neighborhood mixed with business leaders and executives. Former colleagues from the store stood alongside current members of Brielle's team. It was chaotic and wonderful and perfectly them. "I can't believe you convinced me to have the reception at a furniture store," Brielle said as they danced under string lights in the transformed flagship showroom. "It's where we fell in love, plus I got a really good deal on the venue." She smacked his shoulder, laughing. "You own the venue, exactly, very budget-conscious of me." She rested her head on his shoulder, swaying with him. "Do you ever regret it, going undercover that day?" "Not for a single second. Best decision I ever made. Even though I insulted you. Especially because you insulted me. You saw me clearly when I didn't even see myself." Life settled into a beautiful rhythm after the wedding. Brielle finished her business degree and took on even more responsibility in the company, launching initiatives that continued to transform the culture. Yannick stepped back from some of the day-to-day operations, trusting his team in a way he never had before. They bought a house together, not a mansion but a real home with a yard and neighbors who didn't care about their net worth. They traveled when they could, always making time for date nights and lazy Sunday mornings. They argued sometimes, usually about work, but they always talked it through. And they were happy. Truly, deeply happy. 2 years into their marriage, Brielle came home from a doctor's appointment with news that would change everything again. "I'm pregnant," she said, standing in their kitchen with her hand on her stomach and wonder in her eyes. Yannick crossed the room in 3 strides, pulling her into his arms. Really, I know we talked about waiting a little longer, but this is perfect." He pulled back to look at her face, seeing his own joy reflected there. "You're perfect. This is perfect." Their daughter was born on a sunny morning in May, weighing 7 pounds and already possessing her mother's determined spirit. They named her Elena, and she became the center of their world overnight. "She has your eyes," Brielle murmured one night as they sat together in the nursery watching Elena sleep. "And your stubborn streak, I suspect. Probably." She leaned against him, exhausted and radiant. "Can you believe this is our life? Sometimes I still can't believe you said yes to dinner that first time, let alone all of this." "I'm glad I did. You've made me happier than I ever imagined possible." Yannick kissed the top of her head, holding his family close. He thought back to that first day at the store, walking in with his pressed shirt and expensive shoes, thinking he was there to fix his company. He'd had no idea he was really there to fix himself, to find the missing piece he hadn't known he needed. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For seeing me, the real me, and for loving me anyway." Brielle tilted her face up to his. "Always." As Alina grew, she became a fixture at the company, toddling through the offices and charming everyone she met. Yannick and Brielle made sure she understood the value of hard work, of treating people with respect regardless of their job title. They wanted her to grow up knowing that success meant more than money. It meant making a positive impact on the world around you. On Alina's 5th birthday, they threw a party at the flagship store, now a shining example of what the company had become. Former employees came, along with current ones, all wanting to celebrate the little girl who represented everything good about the Remington family. "This is surreal," Brielle said, watching Alina play with a group of children while adults mingled around them. "5 years ago I was making coffee in that cafe, miserable and frustrated. Now look at us." "You were never just making coffee," Yannick corrected. "You were dreaming bigger, fighting for better. You just needed someone to listen. And you needed someone to tell you the truth. Best thing that ever happened to me." They stood together, watching their daughter, their family, their community. The company continued to thrive, but more importantly, it had become a place people were proud to work. A place that valued its employees and its customers equally. A place that had learned that success and integrity weren't mutually exclusive. That night, after Alina was asleep and they were curled up together on their couch, Brielle turned to Yannick with a familiar sparkle in her eye. "I've been thinking," she said. "Dangerous." She ignored the teasing. "I want to start a foundation. Use our resources to help other companies treat their employees better. Training programs, consulting, grants for small businesses trying to do the right thing." "I love it. When do we start?" "You don't want to think about it." "I don't need to. If you believe in it, I believe in it." He pulled her closer. "We're a team, remember? In everything. Best team there is." The foundation launched a year later with Brielle at the helm. It became her passion project, expanding far beyond what they'd initially envisioned. She traveled the country, speaking at conferences, advising struggling companies, giving voice to workers who felt unheard. And Yannick supported her every step of the way, managing more of the home front so she could pursue this new dream. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Yannick surprised Brielle with a return to the cafe where they'd first met. He'd rented out the entire store for the evening, recreating that first day down to the smallest detail. "You're insane," she said, laughing as she took in the scene. "You recreated my old workspace. I recreated the place where my life changed." He handed her a coffee, the same order she'd made him that first morning. "I wanted to remind you where we started. I remember every second of that day." The arrogant-looking new guy with his too nice clothes, asking questions that were just a little too probing. The beautiful barista who saw through me immediately and still took the time to explain everything that was wrong. She set down the coffee and moved into his arms. "I had no idea you'd become everything right." They danced in the empty store, no music but their own hearts beating in sync. Outside, the city moved on, oblivious to the love story that had started in this ordinary place. But inside, Yannick and Brielle existed in their own perfect moment, reflecting on a decade of love, growth, and partnership. "What do you think?" Yannick asked. "Another 10 years, at least, probably forever." Forever sounds perfect. Their son was born 2 years later, a surprise that delighted Alina and completed their family. They named him Marcus, after the COO who'd supported Yannick's crazy undercover plan all those years ago. He was calmer than his sister, but just as loved. The company continued to evolve under their joint leadership. They expanded internationally, always ensuring that the values they'd fought so hard to instill remained central. Employee testimonials spoke of life-changing opportunities, fair treatment, and a culture that genuinely cared. Customer loyalty was higher than ever, but more than any business success, Yannick treasured the life he'd built with Brielle, the morning routines and bedtime stories. The family dinners where Alina talked about her day at school and Marcus babbled happily in his high chair. The quiet moments after the kids were asleep, when he and Brielle would curl up together and just be. "Do you ever miss it?" Brielle asked one night. "The simplicity of before, when it was just us." "Never," Yannick said without hesitation. "Every stage with you has been exactly what I needed." This is just another chapter in our story. A really good chapter. The best. Years passed in a blur of school plays and business launches, family vacations and charity galas. Alina grew into a thoughtful teenager with her mother's passion for justice and her father's business acumen. Marcus showed early signs of being an artist, filling their home with colorful paintings and sculptures made from whatever materials he could find. On their 20th anniversary, the company threw them a celebration at the original flagship store, now considered a historic location in the Remington home furnishing story. Hundreds of employees, past and present, gathered to honor the couple who transformed not just a company, but an entire industry's approach to employee relations. "I didn't prepare a speech," Brielle admitted to the crowd. "Because honestly, I'm not sure how to put the last 20 years into words. When I met Yannick, I was an angry barista who thought she knew better than the CEO. Turns out, I was right about some things and very wrong about others." Laughter rippled through the crowd. "I was wrong about Yannick being unwilling to listen. I was wrong about change being impossible. And I was definitely wrong about being able to resist falling for him once I got to know who he really was." She found him in the crowd, their eyes meeting across the space. "But I was right about one thing. This company had incredible potential. It still does. Because of all of you, because of the culture we've built together. Thank you for being part of our story." Yannick took the microphone next. 20 years ago, I walked into this store thinking I was going to fix it. Instead, it fixed me. Or rather, Brielle did. She showed me that being a good leader means listening more than you talk. It means caring about people as individuals, not just as resources. It means being willing to admit when you're wrong and having the courage to make it right. He looked at Brielle, standing beside him, and his heart swelled with love that had only deepened over 2 decades. "I'm the luckiest man alive. Not because of the business success or the money or any of that, but because I get to wake up every morning next to my best friend, my partner, the love of my life. The woman who tells me when I am being an idiot and believes in me when I doubt myself. Brielle, you are my everything. Thank you for saying yes to dinner all those years ago. Thank you for saying yes to forever." The crowd erupted in applause, but Yannick only saw Brielle, tears streaming down her face as she moved into his arms. "I love you," she whispered against his chest. "More every day." "Same, sweetheart." Always the same. They renewed their vows that night, surrounded by family and friends and the community they'd built. Alina and Marcus stood up with them, Alina reading a poem she'd written about her parents' love, Marcus presenting them with a painting of the cafe where they'd met. Life continued its beautiful forward motion. The foundation grew, touching thousands of lives. The company thrived, expanding in ways they'd never imagined. Alina went to college, studying social entrepreneurship. Marcus got into a prestigious art school. And through it all, Yannick and Brielle remained each other's constant. They still had date nights every week, still debated business decisions over breakfast, still fell asleep tangled together, grateful for another day in their shared life. On their 30th anniversary, they returned once more to the flagship store. It had been renovated several times over the decades, but the cafe remained, now a beloved landmark. They sat at the same counter where Brielle had first laughed at Yannick's outfit, holding hands and marveling at the journey they'd been on. 30 years, Brielle said, shaking her head. How is that possible? Because we were lucky enough to find each other. Yannick brought her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles, and smart enough not to let go. You know what I remember most about that first day? What? The way you helped me during the lunch rush. You didn't have to. You just started, you didn't know what you were doing, but you jumped in anyway because I needed help. She smiled at the memory. That's when I started falling for you, I think, before I even knew your name. I was already gone by then. The moment you challenged me, looked me in the eye and told me I needed to do better, my heart decided it was yours. They sat in comfortable silence, watching younger employees hustle through their shifts, serving customers who had no idea they were sitting in the birthplace of a legendary love story. No regrets, Yannick asked. Not a single one. Even though I lied to you at the start, you didn't lie. You just didn't tell the whole truth, and you made up for it every day since. She leaned her head on his shoulder. This was always meant to be our story. I'm glad we got to write it together. Their children gave them grandchildren, continuing the family legacy. Elena ran the foundation with the same passion her mother had brought to it, while Marcus's art brought beauty and truth to galleries around the world. The company remained strong, now run by a team they'd mentored who understood that success meant more than profit margins. And Yannick and Brielle. They grew old together, laughing and arguing and loving each other through every season. They never forgot where they started, that humble cafe where an undercover CEO met the woman brave enough to tell him the truth. They never took for granted the gift they'd been given, finding love in the most unexpected place. On their 50th anniversary, too weak to make it to the store, they celebrated at home surrounded by family. 5 grandchildren climbed over them, demanding stories about when Grandma and Grandpa first met. And Yannick and Brielle told the tale again, still marveling at the beautiful improbability of it all. Tell the part where Grandma called you an idiot, one grandchild demanded. She didn't call me an idiot, Yannick protested. She called the CEO an idiot. She didn't know it was me. You were the CEO, so she called you an idiot, Elena pointed out, grinning. Semantics. Brielle squeezed his hand, her eyes bright despite her age. I called you an idiot, and you fell in love with me anyway. Best mistake you ever made. No mistake about it. Falling for you was the smartest thing I ever did. As the party wound down and the family dispersed, Yannick and Brielle sat together on their porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and purple. A lifetime together, and still, being near her made his heart race. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For seeing me. For loving me. For building this incredible life with me. He turned to look at her, this woman who'd challenged and changed him, who'd stood beside him through every triumph and struggle. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. Right back at you. She rested her head on his shoulder, fitting perfectly against him like always. Think we got it right. I think we got everything right. We built a good company, raised good kids, made a real difference in the world. But mostly we loved each other well. That's what matters. That's all that matters. They sat together as the sun dipped below the horizon. 2 people who'd found each other against all odds. An undercover CEO and the brave employee who told him the truth. A love story that started with honest criticism and grew into something beautiful and lasting. The perfect ending to a perfect story. Not because it was easy or simple, but because it was real. Because they'd chosen each other every single day through every challenge and joy. Because love, true love, doesn't happen in a moment. It's built through 1,000 small choices, 1,000 acts of kindness, 1,000 decisions to show up and be present and do the work. And Yannick and Brielle, they'd done the work, together, always together. As stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Brielle whispered, "I'd do it all again." Every moment. "So would I," Yannick replied, holding her close. "Exactly the same, except maybe I'd wear cheaper shoes that first day." She laughed, the sound as beautiful to him at 80 as it had been at 25. "Don't change a thing. You were perfect just the way you were." Expensive shoes and all. They remained there, wrapped in each other and the life they'd created. Grateful beyond measure for the day an undercover CEO walked into a cafe and met the woman who would become his everything. The woman who told him hard truths and loved him anyway. The woman who made every day since an adventure worth having. Their love story, written in coffee cups and honest conversations, in renewed vows and shared dreams, in 50 years of partnership that proved some risks are worth taking. Some connections are worth nurturing. Some loves are worth fighting for, and theirs was worth everything.